Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the Deja Vu tag. I was tagged by Nicole from Dusty Book Sniffers. Definitely go check out her channel. It's awesome. We're doing a Count of Monte Cristo read-along that's going to be lasting throughout the year, where basically every month you're reading another 10 chapters, and then you wind up finishing this 1,000+ page book by the end of the year, and it's actually really good. It is a book that I am rereading, which is really suitable for this tag because this is a tag all about rereading. What you reread, what you wouldn't reread, all that you can think of about rereading. So, the creator of this tag was Walker Writes 7, and I will be linking their channel as well as Nicole's down below. Also, as far as who I am tagging, which is the last question on here, I have a tag list that I've created based off of my subscribers or people that frequently comment who also have booktube channels. So you can kind of take that tag list as also a recommendations list. But yeah, go down there, check it out, see if you're tagged. I haven't updated the list recently, so if you're not tagged yet, but you are a subscriber and you've got your subscribers open where I can see that you're subscribed, then I'll go and I'll eventually add you to the tag list. And then, you know, if I do a bunch of tags, you don't want to do them all, that's fine. I'm not expecting anyone to do stuff that I tag them in, but when you do, I do share it on my community tab. So anyway, let's get into the actual tag now. I do not plan on editing this video, so it's going to be a little bit of a free-for-all. But what is not fun about that? Question number 1. Do you reread, and how often? So I do reread, but very infrequently, not very often. So I used to reread a little bit more, but normally when I'm rereading a book, it's because the next book in the series has come out and I feel like I've forgotten too much information, so I need to reread the previous books in order to finish. When I do this, I wait until the series has been completed. That way I'm not going to have to reread the same books multiple times to finally get to the end. So there's only actually been a couple of series throughout my lifetime that I've reread, and it's always been the case where I need to reread previous books in order to finish the last one. The reason for that gets into number 2, which is why do you or don't you reread? So the reason why is because right now I have 420 unread books on my shelf. And I feel like I need to focus on those books before I spend a bunch of time rereading books that I've already enjoyed, because then I'm not going to get to the books that I haven't read yet that could be new favorites. So basically, I'm just trying to read everything on my shelf. And once I've done that, I will definitely become more of a rereader because I want to revisit these books. Otherwise, I wouldn't have kept them. So you'll get to see in this tag video the books that I do want to reread. There will be a little bit of rereading done this year as well, because I need to catch up on some series. I need to finish some series. So I am excited to do that. Number 3, what have been your favorite books to reread? So only like 2 where I've reread the whole series that I can point out, and that is going to be Defy by Sarah B. Larson. This is a fantasy. It's also a fantasy where the girl is disguised as a guy and also is a guard to the prince. So I love all of that tropiness, and that's why I really enjoyed this series. There's also some like lies and deception that happen, which make the reread super interesting because then you know all the lies and deceptions and it's easier to fall into it. Also, there's a love triangle, so once you know who gets picked, then you're able to ship them throughout the book instead of dividing your attention between the love interests. So that was one of them. The other one is going to be The Selection by Kiera Cass. I've reread this one at least one time the whole series through. I might have done it twice. I can't really recall. I think I've done it twice. I think I reread it twice. I really enjoyed this one. My favorite book is actually the second book in the series, The Elite. But this one is about a bunch of girls. It's kind of like the Bachelor show, and they come from different classes as far as wealth goes. And they submit a form in order to be in this competition to win the heart of the prince. This is also a dystopian, so it has a future setting, and there are some rebels who do not like the monarchy, so there's some fighting and stuff involved. Trigger warnings for child abuse in this series, not this book, but in the second book you definitely see the child abuse. You don't really see it firsthand, but you do see the aftermath of the child abuse. So yeah, just a warning about that. But I really do enjoy this series by Kiera Cass, and I love the covers. They're so pretty. This was a cover buy when I got it. Then we move on to the next question, which is, what would you like to reread? And for that, I am going to go with one that you may not have heard of, but it's actually written by a fellow booktuber who also runs his own publishing company called Of Tomes. And all of the books just look like a really high quality. This was his debut, and that is going to be Cloaked in Shadow by Ben Alderson. I really, really, really loved this book. This is a high fantasy story about elves. It also has a prince as the love interest, so I love the whole royalty trope thing going on, as well as an evil, an evil figure. I like kind of sometimes when the like kings are kind of evil, and so that happens in this book. It also happens in the Defy series where the king is evil. There's just a thing about kings being evil and the princes or the princesses having a heart of gold that I really enjoy, because you are not your parents. So I think that's a good message to send. Also really enjoyed the female representation in this book. This is written by a man, but he did really well with having female characters who were very strong, but also didn't seem like an exaggeration. They felt very authentic to me. I really identified with these female characters because they're not girly girls, but they're not like super broody tomboy type either. They're somewhere in between. So I really enjoyed the female stuff with this. I also really liked the comedy aspects. I loved the plot that was going on. And the main characters are gay, so there's that representation in here as well. I think all of his books have male-male romances, and the author himself identifies on the LGBT spectrum. So yeah, own voices, even though this is a fantasy world, and it's just really, really good and so sweet. Just the romances were so sweet. Really, really enjoyed this. Going to be rereading it at some point. I've been wanting to reread it for years because I need to read the second and third book in this series. So I need to reread this sucker. Next is going to be number 5. What book will be so good that you'll want to reread it? So this one's a little hard because, I mean, how can you really know if you'll want to reread something if you haven't read it before? But I do have an answer for this, and that is going to be The Rule of 3. So, full transparency, I think I did read a chapter of this a couple years ago, and that's how I'm able to make an educated guess that this is definitely going to be a 5-star and one that I will eventually want to reread. This is also kind of a dystopian, apocalyptic story where you're seeing the apocalypse happen in real time. There is an EMP that goes off that makes everything shut down, but this teenage kid has an old truck, so he's still able to be on the road. And he and this old man that's kind of like a grandfather figure are picking up supplies, and they are about to go get out of the chaos in the town, because guess what? If the electricity goes out, the 18-wheelers aren't running, which means there's going to be no food eventually. And when there's no food, there is chaos. People will kill for food. So, yeah, I know that this one is going to be super intense because of that. It is a series of at least 3 books. I have 3 books. There might be more books in the series. I'm not quite sure. Also, this is first person. It is a male POV, and I tend to really enjoy those because, again, even though I do not consider myself to be non-binary, I do see myself as being on the middle of the gender spectrum. So sometimes I see myself a lot more in male POV characters rather than female POV characters. So yeah, I think I'm really going to enjoy this story. Then we have the next one, which is going to be pick a book you would like to reread from your younger years. So I don't own a lot of books from when I was younger, but I do own one series, again, that I actually will want to reread because I read the first 2.5 books. Then the movie started coming out, and the second movie decided to cram the 3rd book plot line and the 4th book plot line together, so then I felt like I was spoiled, so I just stopped reading it. But now it's been like a decade, so I want to get back into it. So I was reading this one in 9th grade. I actually borrowed it from a friend, and she was definitely like my first bookish friend, I guess. She was a year older than me. I had a big crush on her younger brother. They went to the same church as me. And she was very picky when she loaned books, the same way that I would be. She was like, make sure you remove the dust jacket before you read the book. Don't dog ear any pages. Like, she had a list of requirements for me with borrowing the books. And then I wound up moving schools. So I was only able to borrow the first 2 books from her. And then my sister bought me the 3rd book for a birthday present when I was still in high school. So that was really nice. Thank you. Anyway, that is going to be The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashars. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It does have a movie. You've probably already heard about this. All the girls can fit into the same pair of pants despite the fact that they have very differing body types. They all go different places for summer. Some of them stay home and get jobs. So one of them goes to a soccer camp, winds up falling for an older guy that is one of the camp leaders. Another one goes to her dad's house, but he is marrying into a new family, so she feels like she's quickly being replaced and just kind of feels like an outcast. Also has plus size rep in here as well as like Latina rep. So yeah, really enjoyed this. Trigger warnings for children with cancer. That is a bit of a spoiler, but I think it's good to point that out. It is not one of the main characters, if that makes a difference for you. But yeah, really, really, really enjoy this series. Definitely want to reread it at some point. Next up, we have number 7. Tell us a series or book that is so complex you need to reread it to better understand. Okay, so I wouldn't say that this is actually overly complex or super long as far as the number of books. There's going to be 5 books in this series, and I do have the 3rd one as well as the novella collection bind up, but I read the first 2 books and then had to wait for the 3rd one to come out. I thought that the 3rd one was going to be the last book in the series, but it's not. There's going to be 5 because these books are so long. They're like 600 plus pages. I feel like I just want to wait another 2 years for the 5th and final book to be out, and then I will reread the first 2 and continue on through the series and just kind of like binge them. Because I am not a big rereader because, again, I have so many books on my shelf. I need to prioritize the ones that I haven't read, which is why I'm putting off getting into the 3rd book. However, I felt like I needed to reread just to get to the 3rd book itself because of the fact that there is a bit of a, not necessarily magic system. This is a sci-fi book, but there's like maneuvers that they do with their spaceships that I need to clarify in my head because it's been a little longer. Because I really enjoyed when I got to the 2nd book knowing all of the maneuvers that they were referencing, and I could visualize them because we'd been introduced to them in a very easy way in the 1st book. So that series is going to be, and my books are trying to fall over here on the bookshelf, so if you hear a big bang, that's what that is. Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, these are chunkers. So I really enjoyed this one. There's also a budding romance that starts to happen that gets hinted at, I believe, at the end of this book. And then it's like a long distance thing happening in the second book. So I want to see these characters together again for the third book. It is a little bit of an enemies to lovers romance, so I enjoyed that. I really like Spencer. I also connect with her. She's super intelligent. She's felt like an outcast because her dad was labeled as a coward, and she is going into a job that is very elite and no one wants her to be there. So she has to prove her worth. And I love stories with female characters that are proving that they can do it and just overcoming obstacles. So really, really enjoying this series. Then we move on to number 8, which is there a specific type of genre you think is best or worst for rereading potential? Okay, so worst is really easy, and I feel like most people will agree. This is going to be your mystery thriller books because you have already solved the mystery. So it can be interesting to reread those books if the red herrings were done really well. So then you get more information about the character because you know who to link it. You know to link it to like the real killer, I guess you would say, some of the information. So it can be interesting to point out, oh, they did drop this clue here that I didn't notice the first time. But for me, I tend to pick up on all the clues. So because I'm a writer, so I know the strategy. I know the strategy and the timing where you place stuff, even though I don't really do mystery thrillers. But yeah, I don't think it would be quite as enjoyable to read those. As far as books to reread that I think work really well, anything for nostalgia purposes where you read it like 10 years beforehand and you want to dive back into the world could be really good. I think stuff with strong romances I really enjoy, so I know the characters that are going to wind up together, so that helps my enjoyment, especially again when there's a love triangle. I don't know who to root for. Also, if there's a romance in a genre where I tend to not trust the romantic lead, I think that there's some deception going on with the romantic lead. I'm not able to fully give my heart away to them when I read the book the first time. So if I know that they're trustworthy the second time around, I can really ship the characters together and like them. So anything where it's like that, or there was a false narrative in the first book, so then now that you know what's going on, it'll be better for a second lens. I even read a book one time where you read the entire book thinking that it's a male character, and there are even illustrated images that also make you think it's a male character. And then you find out that it's a female. So that changes how you go in and read the book because the voice of the character in your head changes based off of that. Just like some small stuff. And yeah, that. So I think anything as well that just has a lot of different plot threads, so not necessarily contemporary stories, but like sci-fi or fantasy, I think would work well for that, because it's just so entertaining that you read through it so fast the first time because you're just super engaged that slowing it down for a reread might wind up giving you a little bit more from it. So yeah, that's my answer for that. This is number 9. Is there a book you've liked more upon reading? So there are a couple, but 2 of them are from controversial authors. And the third one is semi-controversial, but we haven't really like banned them. So I will show you that one because that's the only one I can really promote. And that is going to be The Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I honestly thought this book was super boring the first time around. I think I gave it like a 2.5 or 3 stars. I just did not care about it. It just drug on way too long. I believe I listened to the audiobook the first time around. Yes, I listened to the audiobook the first time around. But then the second book came out in the series, The Court of Mist and Fury, and people were going ape, you know what, over that book. And so I was like, okay, y'all sucked me in. So I reread this sucker physically, I believe, and then I physically read the second book because I thought, okay, maybe the audio is just not for me when it comes to this chunker. So I reread it. I enjoyed it more. Again, also because I had figured out who the ultimate love interest was going to be from the second book, I was able to see the romantic elements in this book and also not ship the one male character. That's about as vague as I could get with this one. I like knowing who the love interest is going to be so that I can ship them from the start is kind of what I'm getting at with this whole video, right? Okay. So next one is number 10. Is there a book you liked less upon rereading? And for that, I would say no. However, I could definitely see some potential books that I probably will not like as much when rereading, including Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I feel like there's going to be things that I will not like about that book. Just any books really that are written more than a decade ago, I could see not liking them as much a second time around, simply because I'm much older. So there are things that I don't really ship anymore that I definitely would have shipped as a teenager. So for instance, I would have totally been into the student-teacher relationship trope, including in YA. Definitely into it if it was college students, like the Damaged series by H.M. Ward. Really love that. But now that I know more about consent and power dynamics, I don't think I could ever read a student-teacher relationship, especially when the student is in high school, and actually enjoy it. Now, I could totally do it in a college setting. But in high school, I'm like, no, I can't do that. I don't think I could do that because that's something real that happens. It happened at 2 of the schools that I went to, and both times it was a female perpetrator and a male victim. One of them was an 8th grade teacher. One of them was a high school teacher. One of them got pregnant with the boy's child. And so I had left the one school and went to another school, and then everything broke out. And I knew the guy. I knew the guys in all of these situations. So the one guy, he was like very dirty-minded and was always making dirty jokes on the bus, that sort of thing. Just super immature. I don't know how an adult could possibly be like, yes, I want to be with this 8th grade boy. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then she was also the newspaper editor, and I was in the newspaper club. So I knew both the perpetrator and the victim. And then for the second school, I was in high school, and this came out, I believe, the year after I graduated. So I knew the student. It was actually 2 boys, and I knew both of them. They were brothers. And this one was interesting because the teacher, the female teacher, was not creepy. She was not creepy. I never would have expected her to be one of those teachers. She had 2 cute little girls. She had a husband. They seemed to be happy. She was one of my favorite math teachers. Like, she was a really good teacher. But she was also, because, yeah, no, you're not going to be going around. One of them was 18, but it doesn't matter. He was still your student. And the other one, I think, was like 17. He was a year below me. Yeah, so both of the people went to prison. And they should have, because it's a crime. Do not get with your students, okay? It cannot be consensual. It's not consensual because you're in a position of power. So anyway. Number 11. If you reread, let us know a book you'd like to reread before the end of the year. That is going to be the Gallagher Girls series by Allie Carter. I really want to reread these books. I hope that I will love them as much as I did the first time around. I got this at a Scholastic's book fair that was happening at the elementary school where I was part of the after-school childcare program as a high schooler. So I would go there after school, watch the kids. My mom was the director of the after school program, and they had a Scholastics fair. So one of the days I got to go in there and she let me get some books. So I got the first 2 books in this series and absolutely, absolutely loved this series. I think I was like in 11th grade. So yeah, I think I'll definitely still enjoy this series. I believe I read the first 4 or 5 books, and I think there's like 7 books, something like that. So I was reading this as they were coming out, and then I was also in the military by the time these were still releasing. And so I went on a deployment and I continued to buy the books, but I hadn't been reading them because it had been too long since I'd read the previous books. So yeah, I really want to get to this one, finally finish the series. This is about a spy school for girls, but also then you get to see a little bit of a spoiler. The second book, you get to see the males doing spy school as well. So really enjoyed that. There's lots of romance in this series, and I liked all the couples. I don't really know who's technically endgame. I have a pretty good guess who's endgame, but yeah, I liked this one a lot. It got me in the feels. So yeah. This one is called I'd Tell You I Love You, But Then I'd Have to Kill You. The second one is Cross My Heart and Hope to Spy. And then it's like only good girls, only good spies die young or something like that. I don't know. The titles are cute and cheeky. And then number 11 is Tag Some Friends. Again, I'm just putting my tag list down below. And there we go. I don't have to edit this video. I should put a trigger warning on it somewhere because we got into the number 10 question. But that is all I've got for this one. Thanks, Nicole, for tagging me. And I will see y'all later in my next video, I guess. Bye!